Rocky is left-handed, but Sylvester Stallone is a righty, and this is most obvious when he's taken down some notes on who to collect from next. In 2 scenes, Sylvester Stallone is seen writing with his right hand, but since we never get a close-up shot of him in the act of writing in the book, it doesn't really matter. He could have just been holding it in his left hand and scribbling nonsense, and it would have looked like he was writing down Del Rio.
Hey, how do you spell Del Rio? Look up in a dictionary, Rock. Come on.
Not to mention, when he's doing heavy bag work at the meatpacking plant, he's standing and punching in an orthodox stance, not southpaw. When the fighters step into the ring on fight night, neither one of them has their boxing gloves on yet. This is just weird. It takes time to put them on and wrap them. There's a process where a member from each team watches the other get their wraps and gloves put on to make sure there's no funny business. All they have are their hand wraps, which go under the gloves, until we get the bird's eye view shot with the microphone being lowered into the ring announcer. When you slow it down and take a look, this is when Apollo's gloves magically appear on his hands, but we don't see Rocky wearing his gloves until Joe Frazier steps into the ring to greet them. The poster shot of Rocky and Adrian holding hands and walking away is never seen in the finished film. Instead, this was a shot from the originally intended ending of these two characters going off together to live the rest of their lives. But it made for a somewhat unsatisfying ending, so that's why we got the ending we did, with a freeze frame on Rocky's face right at the pinnacle of his life.
Right on the single frame when he is looking elated and he has her in his arms and it's just this look of ecstasy, and the next frame it went like, it just deflated. I said, there it is. From that moment on, it's all downhill. I mean, how we all hit this absolute maximum of elation and celebration, and you know, that can only be sustained for like just an infinitesimal moment in time. And if you can you imagine how great it would be just to freeze on that moment? And that's how we froze Rocky. That the original Rocky, he went out at the height. His life will never be more rewarding or more important or more valid than that second.
Holding the woman he loves after the most significant accomplishment he could ever hope for. Stallone tells us in the commentary track of the DVD that he actually used to drink raw eggs every day for years. The reason being wasn't because of an intense training regimen, but rather because that tiny New York apartment he would eventually write the script for Rocky in didn't have a kitchen, so no refrigerator and no stove. As an alternative, he started refrigerating the eggs on his windowsill and drinking them raw.
Quite often the birds would eat most of the yogurt or whatever, but the eggs, they'd leave alone, and every morning I would reach out when they weren't frozen and take about a half dozen eggs in a glass. And since I didn't have a stove, drink it raw. And I thought, God, maybe, I don't know if this is good, but it seems like it would be healthy. Here I am years later, 5 years later, doing Rocky. I said, I might as well reenact what I did every morning for years. Then I found out it's really unhealthy to do this. But I'd had a lot of practice doing it.
The film opens with Rocky fighting some tomato can bum named Spider Rico on November 25th, 1975, which was a Tuesday. 2 days later, he picks up Adrian for their first date, and it's confirmed several times that this is Thanksgiving Day.
Boy, it's Thanksgiving. I got a turkey in the oven.
Come on, it's Thanksgiving.
But it was Thanksgiving.
What?
It was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, to you, but to me it's Thursday, right?
And this is historically accurate. Thursday, November 27th, 1975 was Thanksgiving Day. Another thing about that Spider Rico fight is when Rocky's declared the winner, Spider's seen being helped by his team to stand up. But a moment later in the next shot, he's seen back on the canvas not up yet. Rocky's 2 pet turtles, Cuff and Link, became Stallone's pet turtles after the end of filming, and they lived to be about 20 years old. Rocky's last fight with Spider Rico paid $65. Well, the guaranteed payout for the Creed fight is $150,000. That's a pay increase of 2,307.69 times. Or in other words, a 230,769% increase. Nice. I've seen claims that it's a mistake of the film to have the news report talking about Rocky and his training methods at the butcher shop having the camera angles change, because the story was filmed with just the reporter and the one cameraman. But nowhere is it said that this is a live report. It's just the way the movie takes us from inside the butcher shop to in Apollo's offices while they're watching on TV that maybe throws that illusion, because we even see the first take get messed up by Paulie in the background.
The reason we're standing in this
Hey, the
refrigerator...
meat guy's sticking his face in.
Let's try it again, Rocky.
You can put it all together in the editing room before it airs at 6 o'clock. When Mickey comes over to Rocky's place and tries to make peace and offers to manage him through the big fight, we see Rocky lives in apartment number 2. And despite still being upset with him about giving his locker away, Rocky lets him in. But as the door opens and we see Mickey enter the threshold, the number 2 is missing off the door, which suggests either this apartment setting or the stairway was a set rebuilt to look like the property at 1818 East Tuscaloosa Street, which is the real-life Philadelphia address Rocky's supposed to be living at. Rocky's cordial with Mickey at first, but as soon as he mentions anything about trying to be a manager,
Listen to me.
he shows blatant disinterest in the conversation 6 different ways. First, he starts checking his mail. Then he straight up ignores Mickey's question and enters the other room. He throws back some resentment about Mickey giving up on him recently before.
I got heart, but I ain't got no locker, do I, Mick?
He goes back into the other room and grabs a beer. Then he starts playing darts, or just aimlessly throwing them at the door with no real target. And finally, he just goes to the bathroom and stays in there until he thinks Mickey's left. And when he finishes throwing the darts at the door and goes in to enter the bathroom, note the pattern. The 3 darts, you have 2 up high and 1 lower off to the side, and using the middle panel as a target board marker, they're closer to the top of that panel. When Mickey goes to leave but forgets his hat and then Rocky thinks he left so he opens the door, we see the darts are now lower on that panel and they're in more of an upside down equilateral triangle type of position. Then when Mickey leaves for real and Rocky comes out, we see there are only 2 darts in the door. So either one fell out in between the shots, or more likely, Stallone was throwing the darts at the thing a few times. They maybe did 2 or 3 takes, put everything together with what worked best, and went on to the next scene. But however they filmed it, one thing I do know is the monologue rant Rocky goes off on as Mickey leaves and goes down out the door. That was totally improvised. And whatever was going on with the plumbing at 1818 East Tuscaloosa, that place was apparently indeed very smelly.
Real night, come on in the milk. It stinks. Whole place stinks.
There's another incorrect assumption about the rose bushes in Adrian and Paulie's front yard. There are 2 scenes in the movie where Rocky and Adrian are leaving the house together, and we see growing up the front porch are 2 roses in bloom, symbolic of this new couple's blossoming love. People assume since the movie is set from late November through December in Pennsylvania that it's too cold to be possible to have roses in your front yard, but in fact there are several varieties of rose that bloom all the way through December. So it is possible these flowers in front of the house are Christmas rose camellias. And by the way, I should mention Adrian and Paulie's house is at 2822 Rose Hill Street. Stallone was initially offered $25,000 for the rights to the script, but kept entertaining and turning down offers until he was offered $360,000, equivalent to just over $2 million in 2025.
The temptation started to come forward. First it was 25 grand, then $100,000. And it went up to 330,000. And probably, I heard it went up to 360,000. And I thought, all right, in the back of my mind, if I sell this script and it does very, very well, I'm gonna jump off a building. So this is one of those things where you just roll the dice and you fly by the proverbial seat of your pants. Say, all right, I gotta try it. I gotta just do it. I may be totally wrong, and I'm going to be taking a lot of people down with me, but I just believe in it.
And a fantastic bet that was, because the movie brought in about $225 million at the box office alone, or adjusted for inflation, about $1.2 billion in 2025 dollars. If you were to film Rocky today, the adjusted budget would be $6.1 million, which is a 460.8% cumulative rate of inflation. Ouch. And even given this meager figure for a Hollywood movie, they came in under budget, finishing the entire film for about $960,000, about the cost of a good toothpaste commercial at the time. They did this by using friends and family for minor characters or extras, like Rocky's brother Frank Stallone as one of the singing street dudes, their father Frank Stallone Sr. as the between rounds bell ringer guy, and Sly's wife at the time did the still photography on set. Not to mention Butkus Stallone. The dog Adrian gifts Rocky as a running partner with Sly's dog in real life. Butkus joined the family in 1969 as a 6-week-old puppy, making him about 6 or 7 years old at the time of filming. At between 120 to 140 pounds, one of the iconic scenes of the film, running up the Philadelphia Museum of Art steps, was originally planned to have Stallone carrying Butkus as he climbed. But this extra weight was too much for Sly, not to mention, when he first tried lifting him for the shot, Butkus let out a huge fart, ruining the scene anyway. And due to his lack of success before the momentum of Rocky, he almost had to sell the dog because it was either that or the dog wasn't going to be well fed. In some interviews, Stallone says he sold Butkus for $40 outside a 7-Eleven convenience store and desperately repurchased him for $15,000 once he had some Rocky money in hand. But his brother Frank Stallone says that story is BS.
So finally I get the job, I go back to the fellow I sold it to, who now won't give it back. And he's a rather short guy, really short. So that he paid me like $60 for the dog. He goes, I'll give you the dog back for $3,000. I said, I don't have $3,000. He goes, all right, I want to be in the movie. So I put him in the movie.
So he's in Rocky?
Yeah, he's in first guy, little scene. He goes, I'm walking in. He goes, how'd you do last night? I said, I did great. You should have been there. He goes, I go, what, how'd you do? I said, what are you, deaf? He goes, no, I'm short. I go, yeah.
You're back. My back is hurt. You deaf?
No, I'm short.
Butkus lived to be about 12 years old, passing away in 1981, around the time Rocky III was in production. Another way the crew saved money was to tweak the scenes Stallone had written. For example, on Rocky and Adrian's first date to the skating rink, the original idea was a big deal. They were supposed to attend during open hours, which would have required around 300 extras.
Well, I show up on the set. They said, we have a slight change in plans. We have one extra. I said, interesting. And I said, well, I have an interesting thing to tell you too. I don't ice skate. I don't know why I wrote it, but I thought it'd be interesting. So here we are with an empty arena, and I don't really skate at all.
The scene was altered to have them show up later in the evening just as the place was closing, giving them more privacy to just be themselves. And further on this note, the first idea for this scene was to have them sitting at a table, like at a diner or something, but this idea seemed too dull and it was decided they should be doing some kind of activity to keep the scene more interesting. So then came the idea to have them go skating. The original title for the movie was Going the Distance,
So all I want to do is go the distance.
which means going the whole fight without a knockout, with both fighters still standing when the final bell rings, because that's all Rocky wants to do to prove himself to himself and the world. That he's not just some bum who quit, that he took his shot, and if he failed, at least it was on his terms, again reflecting Stallone's journey as an aspiring actor. Every song on the original soundtrack was written by Bill Conti, except for the one we hear as Rocky walks home at the start of the film, which was written by Frank, then known as Frankie, Stallone Jr., and performed with his band at the time named Valentine. Bill Conti's main theme, Gonna Fly Now, hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and it stayed there for 1 week, a tremendous accomplishment. Many people are already aware that this film won Best Picture for the 1976 Oscars, but it also won Best Director and Best Film Editing. It was further nominated for 7 additional Oscars, and winning the Best Picture award made it the first sports movie ever to do so. That said, the one other major award it took was the Golden Globe for Best Drama Motion Picture, which I suppose officially makes it a drama that takes place around the world of sports, not necessarily a sports film, sort of like how Die Hard is arguably, but not necessarily a Christmas movie. But I digress. And on the Best Editing note, you probably missed the fact that as Rocky walks past a bunch of kids hanging outside the atomic hoagie shop, he has a cigarette in his mouth. But when he takes little Marie away from them to walk her home, the cigarette is suddenly gone. Then, as they walk through the streets, there's a shot where we can actually hear the camera's film roll clicking.
Hey, that don't matter to you 12. It don't matter. You don't really have to be one. You just act like one and that's it. Boom.
A testament to the low-budget nature of this movie. Still, it somehow blends into the outdoor noise and doesn't distract the viewer as a shot of the characters far away. Other mistakes include the shorts the costume department chose for Rocky to wear during his fight with Apollo were white with red stripes. However, the artist hired to create the poster of Rocky to hang from the ceiling during fight night messed up and painted the shorts red with white stripes. There was no way to correct this mistake because the studio didn't have enough time or money to do so, so it was added to the script that Rocky would comment on this mistake.
Mr. Jergens, the poster's wrong. Well, I'm wearing white pants with a red stripe.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
During the filming of the final fight scenes with Apollo Creed, played by the late, great Carl Weathers, Stallone and Weathers sustained real injuries. What's funny is that Stallone suffered bruised ribs and Weathers got his nose smashed up, but in the movie, Rocky gets his nose broken and Creed suffers a broken rib.
Your nose is broken.
How's it look?
That's an improvement. Okay, champ?
More clear.
So they gave each other the opposite injuries as their characters sustained. But Carl Weathers was not the first choice to play Apollo Creed. The part was first offered to real-life heavyweight boxer Ken Norton, who actually faced Ali 3 times and beat him in a split decision their first fight, but lost the other 2. It would have been an interesting choice to have a man who actually beat Ali once play the character he inspired, but Norton turned down the role. Bringing in Weathers solved another issue though, in that he and Stallone are about the same height, but Norton was 6'4", so he would have towered over Sly in the ring. However, one other heavyweight great did make a cameo in the film. Smokin' Joe Frazier stepped inside the ring before the main event to pay respects to the fighters. Just like Ken Norton, Frazier also fought Ali 3 times, beating him the first time and losing the next 2. Frazier also apparently inspired Stallone to have Rocky punch meat and run upstairs during training. While doing laps around the rink on their first date, Rocky explains what southpaw means by telling an old boxing story. But southpaw, being a slang term for left-hander, originated as a baseball term, not a fighting term. It's a left-handed pitcher because when built correctly, center field should always be on the east side so the batter isn't looking into a setting sun. Therefore, first base is to the south, the direction the left-handed pitcher is facing while they're in the stretch. So Rocky's attempt at an explanation of the origin story is either misguided or it's an effort to impress the girl he likes. When Paulie comes home drunk and hears Rocky and Adrian talking about him in the living room, he eavesdrops for a moment before turning on the lights and confronting them. But if you watch real close, there's a slight delay between when he hits the switch and when the lights turn on. That's because the switch he's flipping doesn't do anything and the lights are actually being activated by one of the crew members off camera. We never see Rocky drive, at least not in the original movie. Everywhere he goes is on foot or being driven around. And with a little research on filming locations, we can see how realistic or unrealistic some of the most iconic scenes are. I've already mentioned several addresses to set the stage for this, so let's map out Rocky's life. To start off, how about Mickey's gym and the pet shop, 2 places he frequented nearly every day? Plugging in directions for these 2 addresses on Google Maps gives me about a 17-minute walk. Well, how long would it take him to get from his place to Adrian's house? Well, it's just about 2 blocks away, an 8-minute walk or so. Or, as you can see from the Atomic Hoagie Shop at the corner of South 12th and Cantrell, over to Little Marie's house to drop her off at 1124 Jackson Street is 0.1 miles away, about a 2-minute walk. And that's about how long this scene is. But after dropping her off, Rocky would have had a 5.7-mile walk, over 2 hours. Or maybe a good opportunity to get some extra training in. The shot where we see Rocky running through the junkyard at the beginning of the training montage is about 2.8 miles away from his home. And when Gazzo drops him off after chewing him out about who does the figuring,
Let me do the figuring, okay, Rock? From here on, just let me do the figuring.
it's right around the corner from his house at 320 East Gurney Street. As far as I could tell, there were 2 filming locations for Paulie's Butcher Shop, and they were both in California. So Rocky is not walking that. And unfortunately, so too was the ice rink, so I can't tell you how long it would have taken Rocky and Adrian to walk there realistically. And then, of course, the infamous Philadelphia Museum of Art. After climbing the steps, Rocky would still have about 4.3 miles to get home. And to get from his house to the stadium on fight night was 7.4 miles away. This would be nearly a 3-hour walk, so I imagine somebody, probably Tony Gazzo, gave him a ride to the venue. Or he could possibly have taken a bus. And that right there is 20 plus minutes about the original Rocky movie. Thank you so very much for watching. Please like the like button on your way out, show it some love, and subscribe to catch the next videos I drop about movies, TV shows, characters, and other pop culture stuff. You can always change your mind later. I'll be back as soon as I can with more content, so until then, stay cool and always keep punching out there. Aloha.